The fork in my hand stopped halfway to my mouth. My mother's laugh, that sharp, cutting sound I'd heard 1,000 times before, sliced through the dining room like broken glass. "Oh, come on, Julian. Don't be so harsh," she said, still smiling. "He's always been like this. Desperate for validation." I blinked, set the fork down slowly. The envelope with the California tickets sat in the middle of the table, torn open where my brother had ripped through it seconds earlier. "You're still trying to buy our love, aren't you?" Julian had said, holding up the first-class ticket like it was evidence in a trial. Like I was guilty of something. I'd spent weeks planning this trip. My parents' 40th anniversary. Mom had always talked about seeing the Pacific sunset. I covered everything, hotels, excursions, even a private coastal tour. First-class tickets for all 4 of them. This was supposed to be the moment that finally bridged the gap. The moment they saw me. Instead, I was watching my family dissect my kindness like it was pathetic. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. Just kept cutting his steak with surgical precision. "You should stop wasting your money trying to prove yourself, Elias," he said, voice flat. "You can't fix what you never had." My throat tightened. What I never had? Mom leaned back in her chair, arms folded across her chest. The candlelight caught the edge of her wedding ring, 40 years of marriage, celebrated with designer china and imported wine. She looked at me the way you'd look at a stranger who'd overstayed their welcome. "Let's not pretend, Elias." Her voice dropped lower, colder. "No one here actually likes you." The words landed like a punch to the sternum. "Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story." The room fell silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence. The suffocating kind. The kind where everyone's waiting to see if you'll break. Julian smirked from across the table. Rhea, his wife, stared down at her napkin. Dad finally looked up, but only for a second, just long enough for me to see he agreed with every word Mom had said. "You've always been different," Mom continued, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "Distant. You can't buy your way into this family." I felt my hands go numb. Not from shock. From clarity. Every birthday I'd spent alone while they celebrated together. Every family gathering where they forgot my name in conversations. Every time I'd shown up with gifts, with effort, with hope, and they'd looked at me like I was performing a sad magic trick nobody asked for. I'd spent 32 years trying to earn something they were never going to give. Julian leaned forward, elbows on the table. "She's right, man. You don't belong here. You never did." For a long moment, I just sat there. My mind replayed every memory in fast forward. The Christmases, the graduations, the phone calls I made that never got returned. All those years of thinking blood meant something. Then I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because something inside me finally understood. "Understood," I said quietly. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor as I pushed back from the table. The sound felt louder than it should have. "Final." Mom frowned. "Don't be dramatic, Elias." I looked around the table one last time. At the faces that had once defined my entire world. At the people I'd called family for 3 decades. "I'm not being dramatic," I whispered. "I'm being done." I turned and walked toward the door. No raised voice. No slammed fist. Just my footsteps echoing through the hallway. "Elias, sit down," Dad called after me. "We're not finished." I stopped at the doorway. Didn't turn around. "Yes," I said. "We are." Then I walked out into the night, leaving behind the tickets, the dinner, and the last piece of hope I'd been carrying for 32 years. What happens when the family who rejected you realizes you were their only lifeline? Stay tuned. The suitcase sat open on my bed at 2 in the morning. I wasn't crying. That would have required feeling something other than this strange, hollow clarity. I folded 3 shirts. 2 pairs of jeans. My laptop and charger. That was it. Everything else in this apartment, the furniture they'd helped me pick out, the dishes Mom bought me when I moved in, the framed family photos on the wall, could stay. None of it was really mine anyway. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "You're being childish." I turned the phone off. The memories came in flashes while I packed. 8 years old, sitting alone at my birthday party because they'd scheduled it the same day as Julian's soccer tournament. 16. Watching Dad teach Julian about architecture while I sat in the corner with my computer. 25. Hearing Mom tell her friends at a holiday party that she had one son in the family business and one who does something with computers. I'd spent my whole life being the footnote in their story. The flight confirmation email appeared on my laptop screen. One-way ticket to Seattle. Leaving in 6 hours. Dr. Everett Klein had offered me a partnership 2 years ago. "You're wasting your potential," he'd said over coffee. "Come to Seattle. Build something that matters." I'd said no because family came first. What a joke. I zipped the suitcase closed and left my house keys on the kitchen counter. No note. They didn't deserve an explanation. They'd made it clear I didn't belong. The airport was nearly empty at dawn. I bought terrible coffee and sat at the gate, watching the sky turn from black to gray to pale blue. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The plane lifted off, and I watched my city disappear below the clouds. Somewhere down there, my family was probably still asleep. Probably wouldn't even notice I was gone until they needed something. Seattle appeared through the window 5 hours later. All rain and green, and buildings reaching toward heavy clouds. It looked nothing like home. That was exactly what I needed. Dr. Klein met me at the airport himself. 70 years old with silver hair and eyes that actually saw you when you talked. He pulled me into a hug that felt more genuine than any my father had ever given me. "Welcome home, son," he said. The word hit differently coming from him. His office was downtown, 19th floor, with windows overlooking the Sound. He walked me through the space. Open floor plan, glass walls, people younger than me hunched over computers with a kind of focus I recognized. "This is where you'll work," he said, opening a door to a corner office. Empty desk. Empty walls. A blank canvas. "You still have that AI architecture platform you told me about?" he asked. I nodded. I'd been developing it for 3 years. Software that could revolutionize how construction firms designed and managed projects. I'd shown it to Dad once. He'd barely looked at it before saying, "We do things the traditional way here." "Build it," Dr. Klein said. "Whatever you need, whatever it takes." That night, I sat in my new apartment, furnished with someone else's old furniture, walls bare, boxes unpacked, and opened my laptop. The code I'd been writing for years stared back at me. I'd built it thinking it might finally make Dad proud. Make him see me. Now I was building it for myself. My fingers moved across the keyboard. Line after line of code. The rain drummed against the window. Seattle hummed outside. For the first time in 32 years, I wasn't trying to prove myself to anyone. I was just building something that mattered. 6 months from now, my family's firm would be losing clients to technology they didn't understand. Technology one created. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that I'd walked away from people who never wanted me and walked toward a city that felt like possibility. I looked out over the Seattle skyline, lights reflecting off wet streets, and whispered to no one, "Let's build something that lasts." Could starting over in a new city be the revenge that changes everything? The coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago. I didn't notice. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but the code was finally working. "Elias, it's 2 a.m., Dr. Klein said from the doorway. He did this sometimes, stayed late, checked on his team like a father checking on his kids. "Almost there," I muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. 6 months in Seattle had changed me. I'd lost weight, gained focus, stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. My family hadn't called once. Not that I expected them to. The AI platform was nearly complete. Architecture firms could upload their blueprints, and the software would analyze structural integrity, suggest cost-saving modifications, predict timeline delays before they happened. It learned from every project it processed. It was beautiful, elegant. Everything Dad's firm needed, but would never ask for. "Run the simulation," I told my computer. The screen filled with data. A test building, 40-story commercial complex, standard design. The AI processed it in seconds, flagged 3 potential structural issues the original architects had missed, suggested material alternatives that would cut costs by 18%. Dr. Klein walked over, reading the screen over my shoulder. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he grabbed my shoulders and pulled me into a hug. "You brilliant, brilliant kid." I felt something crack in my chest. Not pain. Relief. Someone finally saw what I could do. "We launch in 3 weeks," he said. "Start contacting firms for beta testing." The next morning, our first demo went out to 50 architecture companies across the country. By afternoon, we had 37 responses requesting trials. By the end of the week, we had signed contracts with 12 firms. I worked like a man possessed. 18-hour days. Code, test, refine, repeat. My apartment became a place I showered and slept 4 hours a night. The office became home. Dr. Klein called me, the mind that sees patterns others miss. His team treated me like I belonged, like I mattered. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. 3 months after launch, Klein Technologies was being mentioned in industry magazines. Disruptive innovation. Game-changing technology. The future of architectural design. I didn't read the articles. I just kept building. Then one morning, scrolling through industry news while drinking my 4th coffee, I saw a headline that made my hand freeze. Rowan Architects faces client exodus amid technology gap. My father's firm. The company he'd built over 30 years. The legacy he'd chosen Julian to inherit. They were losing clients. The article mentioned newer competitors with advanced project management systems and failure to adapt to industry innovations. I should have felt satisfaction. Victory. Some kind of twisted justice. Instead, I just felt tired. I forwarded the article to Dr. Klein with one line. "We're winning." His response came back immediately. "No, Elias. You're winning. And you earned it." That afternoon, my email notification pinged. Unknown sender. I almost deleted it. Then I saw the address, g.rowan@rowanarchitects.com. My father. My hand hovered over the mouse. Part of me wanted to delete it unread. Pretend I never saw it. Keep moving forward without looking back. But I opened it. The message was short. "Elias, I know things ended badly, but we've hit a rough patch. We're losing bids to a firm using a platform that sounds a lot like what you used to talk about. Could we meet? We need your help." I read it 3 times. He needed my help. After telling me I couldn't fix what I never had. After sitting silent while Mom said no one liked me. After 32 years of making me feel small. Now he needed me. I closed the email without responding. Went back to work. Wrote code until my vision blurred. But that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The irony was almost poetic. The son they'd rejected had built the exact thing that could save them. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted to see if they'd ask twice. 3 days later, my assistant knocked on my office door. Her face was strange, concerned, maybe confused. "Elias," she said slowly. "Your family called. All of them. They want to meet. What happens when the people who broke you come begging for help?" My father's office was falling apart. Not literally. The building still stood, glass and steel reflecting gray Seattle clouds. But you could feel it dying. Empty desks where assistants used to sit. Lights off in conference rooms. The receptionist looked stressed, answering phones with forced cheerfulness. I wasn't there physically. I was watching from my office, reading the industry reports. Rowan Architects had lost 6 major clients in 4 months. Their biggest contract, a downtown hotel renovation, had gone to a competitor using software that sounded suspiciously familiar. Because it was mine. Julian posted on social media like nothing was wrong. Photos of client dinners, fake smiles, captions about exciting new directions. But the comment section told a different story. Former clients mentioning outdated processes and couldn't keep up with modern firms. The second email from Dad came on a Wednesday. This time, Mom was copied. So was Julian. "Elias, please. We need to talk. This is about family." Family. The word they'd used like a weapon at that dinner. Now they were using it like a shield. I forwarded the email to Dr. Klein. "What do you want to do?" he asked, standing in my doorway 15 minutes later. I turned my chair to face him. If someone broke your arm, would you let them perform the surgery? He smiled sadly. They hurt you. They destroyed me, I corrected. I just rebuilt myself better. So what now? I thought about it. The petty part of me wanted to ignore them forever. Let them sink. Watch from a distance while karma did its work. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. Schedule a meeting, I said finally. Professional. Here office. Treat them like any other potential client. Dr. Klein raised an eyebrow. You sure? No, I admitted. But I need to see their faces when they realize who I became. The meeting was set for Friday afternoon, 2 days away. I didn't sleep well those 2 nights. Memories kept surfacing. 8 years old, Dad telling me I'd never understand architecture. 15, Mom laughing when I said I wanted to start a tech company. 28, Julian calling my ideas cute hobbies. Every moment I'd been made to feel small played on repeat. Thursday night, I stayed late at the office. Polished my presentation. Made sure my nameplate was centered on my desk, the one that read Elias Rowan, co-founder and CTO. I wanted them to see it the moment they walked in. Friday morning arrived cold and bright. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought when we signed our first major contract. The one that actually fit me, unlike the hand-me-downs I used to wear to family dinners. My assistant confirmed they'd all be coming. Mom, Dad, Julian, even Rhea. The whole family. Except they weren't my family anymore. They'd made that clear. At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. They're in the lobby. I took a breath. Straightened my tie. Looked at myself in the office window reflection. I wasn't that scared kid anymore. The one desperate for their approval. The one who thought he needed them to matter. I'd become someone they never thought I could be. Send them up, I said. The elevator dinged. I heard voices in the hallway, Mom's nervous laugh, Dad's deep tone trying to sound confident, Julian saying something I couldn't make out. My office door was open. I stood by the window, back to them, looking out over the city I'd made my own. Footsteps stopped at my doorway. Total silence. I counted to 5, then turned around slowly. Mom stood frozen, staring at the nameplate on my desk. Dad's face had gone pale. Julian looked like he'd been punched. Rhea just blinked rapidly, confused. Hello, I said calmly. Welcome to Klein Technologies. Please sit down. Can the family who destroyed you handle seeing you succeed? Nobody moved. They just stood there in my doorway, staring at my name engraved on polished wood. You're running this? Mom finally whispered. I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. Please, sit. Dad was the first to move, mechanical, like his body was on autopilot. Mom followed. Julian stayed standing for a moment longer, jaw tight, before Rhea pulled him down into a chair. The silence stretched. I let it, sat down in my chair, folded my hands on my desk, and waited. This was my office, my company, my rules. Elias, Dad started, voice rough. We didn't know you were. Co-founder and chief technology officer. I finished for him. Yes. For the past 18 months. Julian made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a cough. Impossible. You were doing freelance web design or something. That's what you assumed, I said quietly. You never actually asked what I did. Mom leaned forward. I could see her trying to put on that socialite smile, the one she used at fundraisers. This is wonderful, honey. Really. We're so proud. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. I softened my tone. Please don't. The smile faded. I pulled up a file on my computer, turned the monitor, so they could see. You're here about your client retention problem. According to industry reports, you've lost 38% of your contracts in the last quarter. Dad's shoulders slumped. It's the new software. Everyone's using these platforms we can't compete with. AI-driven project management systems, I said. Predictive analysis. Real-time cost optimization. Structural integrity monitoring. Right, Dad said, nodding eagerly. That's exactly what we need. We were hoping. You're looking at it. They all blinked at me. I turned the monitor back, pulled up our platform interface. Client Technologies launched this system 14 months ago. We now service 63% of architectural firms in the Pacific Northwest, including several of your former clients. The color drained from Julian's face. You're the competition? We're not competing anymore, I corrected. We already won. That's impossible, Julian said, voice rising. You can't just build something from scratch? I finished. Create technology that changes an industry? Funny. I seem to have done exactly that. Mom's voice trembled. Elias, we came here for help. We're family. Are we? The question hung in the air like smoke. Because I distinctly remember you telling me that no one in this family actually liked me. The silence that followed was crushing. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. We said things we shouldn't have. You said what you meant. I kept my voice level, professional, and that's okay. It actually freed me. Freed you? Julian scoffed. You're just being petty, holding a grudge. I looked at him directly for the first time. I'm holding my peace. There's a difference. Rhea, who'd been quiet this whole time, spoke up softly. We need this technology, Elias. The firm is dying without it. Then buy it, I said simply. We offer licensing packages starting at $50,000 per month. Dad's face went white. $50,000? That's industry standard. Actually, we're on the lower end. I slid a folder across the desk. Our pricing structure is all there. Same terms we offer everyone. Everyone. Mom's voice cracked. We're not everyone. We're your parents. The words should have hurt. 6 months ago they would have. Now they just felt empty. Your potential clients, I said. And, to be completely transparent, there's a conflict of interest here. What conflict? Dad asked. Your competitors. We're actively servicing firms that bid against you. Licensing our software to you would require approval from our board, disclosure agreements, possibly even legal review to ensure we're not giving preferential treatment that could be seen as unfair market advantage. I watched their faces fall, one by one. But we're family, Mom repeated, like saying it enough times would make it true. I stood up slowly, walked to the window. The Seattle skyline stretched out before me, all glass and possibility, and everything I'd built without them. The last time I tried to give you something, I said, not turning around, you threw it in my face. Told me I was trying to buy your love. So now I'm treating you exactly how you wanted, like business. This is revenge. Julian spat. I turned back to face them. No. Revenge would be sabotaging your firm, spreading rumors, using my connections to make sure you never get another contract. I paused. I haven't done any of that. I've just built something better than what you have. That's not revenge. That's evolution. Dad stood up, hands shaking slightly. Elias, please. We're sorry. We were wrong at that dinner. You were honest, I interrupted gently. Probably for the first time in years. And I'm grateful for that honesty. It helped me stop wasting my time. What happens when sorry isn't enough to fix what they broke? Mom started crying. Not the dramatic kind. The quiet, broken kind that made her shoulders shake. I'd never seen her cry before. Not once in 32 years. Elias, please, Dad said, voice cracking. We know we hurt you. We're trying to make this right. By asking for business favors? I walked back to my desk, stayed standing. That's not making it right. That's just wanting something from me again. Julian shot to his feet. This is bullshit. You're sabotaging us on purpose. Sit down, Julian, Dad snapped. No. Julian's face was red now. He's doing this to hurt us. He built this whole company just to destroy ours. I almost laughed. You think I spent 18 months building revolutionary technology just to spite you? I shook my head. Julian, I didn't think about you at all while I was building this. That's the part you can't understand. You weren't important enough to factor into my decisions. The words landed like bullets. We're your family, Mom whispered through tears. You said no one in this family liked me. I replied softly. So, why are you here? Why do you suddenly care? Silence. Because you need something, I answered for them. Not because you miss me. Not because you realized you were wrong. Because your business is dying and you think I'm your quick fix. Dad's hands trembled. That's not fair. Fair. The word came out harsher than I meant it to. I took a breath. Steadied myself. Fair would have been you supporting me when I was building this. Fair would have been you asking about my work instead of dismissing it. Fair would have been treating me like I mattered before you needed me. Rhea stood up slowly. For what it's worth, I told them they were wrong. That night at dinner, after you left. I looked at her. She seemed genuinely uncomfortable, like she'd been dragged into someone else's mess. Thank you, I said quietly. But you still stayed with them. You're still here trying to save the firm they built on the ashes of my self-worth. She flinched but nodded. I sat back down, pulled up a document on my screen. I'm going to be honest with you. Completely transparent. The way you should have been with me years ago. They all leaned forward slightly. Our board would never approve licensing to you, I said. The conflict of interest is too severe. We'd open ourselves to lawsuits from other clients who'd claim we gave you preferential treatment or access to proprietary information. So that's it, Julian said bitterly. You're just going to watch us fail? I'm not watching you do anything, I replied. I'm building my company. What happens to yours isn't my responsibility. Mom wiped her eyes. How did we raise such a cold person? The words should have cut deep. Instead, they just felt sad. You didn't raise me, I said quietly. You tolerated me. There's a difference. Dad stood abruptly. We're apologizing, Elias. What more do you want? I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked at him. This man who taught Julian everything about architecture, but never once asked to see my code. Who'd built his entire legacy around family, but made me feel like a stranger in my own home. I want you to understand something, I said carefully. I forgive you. Mom's face lit up slightly. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. The light died. I forgive you for making me feel worthless. For years of dismissing my dreams, my work, my existence. I forgive you because holding on to that anger was destroying me. My voice stayed calm. Even. But forgiveness doesn't mean I owe you my success. It doesn't mean I have to save you. It doesn't mean we go back to pretending we're a functional family. So, what does it mean? Dad asked hoarsely. It means I'm at peace with what happened. And I'm moving forward without you. Julian's fist hit my desk. You're really going to let the family business die? It's not my business, I said simply. It never was. You made that clear. Mom stood, legs shaking. Please, Elias. I'm begging you. And there it was. The woman who'd laughed at my gifts, who'd told me no one liked me, who'd spent my entire life making me feel invisible, now begging. Part of me felt vindicated. Most of me just felt empty. I can give you some advice, I said finally. Professional consultation. 1 hour. Free of charge. But that's all I can offer. Dad grabbed onto it like a lifeline. Yes. Anything. Please. I pulled out a notepad. Started writing. You need to invest in modernization. Hire younger staff who understand current technology. Partner with a software company. Not us, but someone who can bring you into this decade. I tore off the sheet, handed it to Dad. This is your roadmap. It'll take 3 years minimum. You'll have to cut costs, probably downsize, maybe even rebrand. 3 years. Julian said. We'll be bankrupt by then. Then maybe you should have adapted sooner, I replied. Maybe you should have listened when I tried to show you this technology 3 years ago. The silence was deafening. Mom moved toward me. I stepped back instinctively. She stopped. Hurt flashing across her face. Can we talk? Outside of business. Maybe someday, I said. Not cruel. Just honest. But not today. Not until you understand why I left. Not until you actually see me as a person and not just a tool you can use. Dad folded the paper carefully. Put it in his pocket. We were wrong, son. The word son hit different this time. Desperate instead of dismissive. I know, I said quietly. But being wrong doesn't undo 32 years. They filed out slowly. Defeated. Broken. Julian was last. He paused at the door, looked back. You really changed. No, I corrected. I finally became myself. He left without another word. I stood alone in my office, looking at the empty chairs they'd occupied. My hands were shaking. Dr. Klein appeared in the doorway. You okay? I don't know, I admitted. I think so. That took courage. It took survival, I corrected, then added quietly. They said I was cold. You were honest, Dr. Klein said. There's a difference. When they realize too late means forever, what comes next? I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. Life went on. Klein Technologies signed 2 new major contracts. I presented at a tech conference in San Francisco. Forbes mentioned me in an article about emerging innovators under 40. My inbox stayed empty of emails from Jeet Rowan at rowanarchitects.com. I told myself I didn't care. Mostly believed it. Then one evening, working late as usual, my assistant forwarded me something. This came by courier. Marked urgent. From your father. A physical letter. Handwritten. On company letterhead that looked expensive and desperate at the same time. I held it for a full minute before opening it. Elias, we shouldn't have said those things. We were wrong. Not just at that dinner, but for years before. We made you invisible because we didn't understand you, and instead of trying to understand, we just decided you didn't fit. That was our failure, not yours. We're not asking for business help anymore. We're asking if there's any chance, any way, we could start over. As people. Not as a transaction. Your mother cries every night. Julian won't admit it, but he's ashamed. I'm writing this at midnight in my office, wondering how I failed so completely as a father. You deserved better. You always did. Dad. I read it twice. Then a third time. The words were right. They hit all the correct notes of remorse and accountability. But words on paper couldn't erase decades of damage. I thought about responding. Drafted 7 different replies. Deleted all of them. Finally settled on 3 words. I appreciate this. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. Just acknowledgement. I hit send before I could overthink it. 2 days later, another letter came. This one from Mom. I've been going to therapy. The counselor asked me to write down every time I made you feel small. I filled 9 pages. 9 pages of moments where I chose cruelty or indifference instead of love. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if I deserve it. But I need you to know that I see it now. All of it. How we broke you piece by piece and called it parenting. How we made you earn what should have been unconditional. I'm sorry feels too small for what we did. But it's all I have. Mom. This one hit harder. I called Dr. Klein into my office. Showed him both letters. What do you think? I asked. He read them carefully. I think they're in pain. Should that matter to me? That's not for me to decide. He handed them back. But I'll tell you what I see. 2 people who finally realized what they lost. Whether that changes anything is up to you. I put the letters in my desk drawer. Went back to work. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Not with anger anymore. Just sadness. Sad for the relationship we never had. Sad for the family we could have been. Sad that it took losing me for them to see me. The 3rd letter came from Julian. I was jealous. That's the truth. You were always smarter, more creative, more capable of existing without needing their approval. I needed them to think I was special, so I helped them make you feel like you weren't. That makes me the worst kind of brother. I don't expect you to ever want a relationship with me. But I wanted you to know that watching you succeed without us proved everything I was afraid of, that you never needed us at all. You were always going to be extraordinary. I just couldn't stand watching it happen. Julian. I stared at that letter for an hour. Honesty, finally. Real, painful honesty. But did it change anything? I didn't know. What I did know was that I'd build a life without them. A good life. Dr. Klein treated me like family.
My team respected me.
I was doing work that mattered, helping innovators from broken homes build their dreams through my foundation. I'd created the love I never received. So, what did I owe the people who denied me that love for 32 years? The answer came to me slowly, over weeks of thinking. I owed them nothing, but I could choose to give them something anyway. Not because they deserved it, because I deserved to be the kind of person who could extend grace even when it wasn't earned. I drafted a response. Sent it to all three of them. I'm not ready for a relationship. I may never be, but I'm willing to meet occasionally.
Coffee.
Neutral location. No business talk. No expectations. Just conversation. We'll see where it goes from there. One condition, you have to actually listen when I talk. Really listen. Not just wait for your turn to speak. If you can do that, we'll start there. Elias. 3 responses came within an hour. Yes. Dad, thank you. Mom, I'll be there. Julian. The first meeting was awkward. A coffee shop downtown.
Forced small talk.
Long silences. But Mom asked about my work and actually listened to my answer. Dad asked what I did for fun. Julian admitted he'd been following my company's growth and was legitimately impressed. Small steps. Baby steps. When forgiveness becomes a choice instead of an obligation, who does it really free? 2 years later, my foundation held its first scholarship ceremony. 50 young innovators from broken homes, each receiving full funding for their projects plus mentorship from industry leaders. I stood backstage, adjusting my tie, listening to Dr. Klein introduce the program to the packed auditorium. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We're here. 5th row. So proud of you. I'd invited them. Not because I had to. Because I wanted witnesses to what I'd built from the ruins of their rejection. The ceremony went perfectly. Each recipient walked across the stage, holding a silver plaque engraved with words I'd written. You are enough. You always were. A girl named Maya, 17, from foster care, building an app to connect homeless youth with resources. She cried when she read it. A kid named Devin, 22, kicked out for being gay, developing clean water technology for developing countries. He clutched that plaque like it was treasure. This was what mattered. Not revenge. Not proving myself to people who should have believed in me from the start. This was about making sure other kids didn't grow up feeling invisible. After the ceremony, the reception was elegant chaos. Donors, recipients, press, all mingling. I worked the room, shaking hands, taking photos, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in years. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Elias. I turned. Rhea. Julian's wife. She looked different, thinner, tired, but smiling. This is beautiful, she said, gesturing around the room. What you've built here. Thank you. Julian wanted to come say hi, but he's nervous. I spotted him across the room, standing with my parents, all 3 looking uncomfortable in their formal wear. It's okay, I said. Tell him to come over. She nodded, walked back. Returned with my family in tow. We stood in an awkward circle for a moment. This is incredible, son, Dad said finally. His voice had changed over 2 years.
Softer.
Less commanding. It's important work, I replied. Mom touched my arm lightly. I read every article about the foundation. About how you're helping kids like you were. Like I was. I confirmed. Not angry. Just factual. Julian cleared his throat. I've been following one of your recipients. Marcus Johnson. The kid building sustainable housing. I reached out to him through the firm. We're consulting on his project. I raised an eyebrow. You're helping? Trying to, Julian admitted. Figured it was time to actually use what Dad taught me for something that mattered. Something shifted in my chest. Not forgiveness, that had come slowly over coffee meetings and awkward dinners. This was different. Recognition. They were trying. That's good, I said. Marcus is brilliant. He needs experienced architects. Learn from the best, Julian said, then added quickly, I mean you. Your platform revolutionized how we work. I should have said that years ago. Before I could respond, a voice behind me said, "Elias? There's someone who wants to meet you." I turned. My assistant stood with Maya, the 17-year-old foster kid. "Mr. Rowan," Maya said shyly. "I just wanted to say thank you. This scholarship, it's the first time anyone believed in me." I crouched down slightly to meet her eyes. "I believe in you because I see you. Really see you. Don't ever forget that you matter. Your ideas matter. Your voice matters." She hugged me suddenly, fiercely. "Thank you for being proof that it gets better." When she walked away, I stood up and found my mother crying quietly. "That's what we should have said to you," Mom whispered. "Every single day." I nodded slowly.
Yes.
"It is." "We can't go back," Dad said. "But is there any way forward?" I looked at them, really looked at them. They'd aged in 2 years. Dad's hair was grayer. Mom's eyes had lines I didn't remember. Julian stood differently, less cocky, more uncertain. They'd lost their son and spent 2 years trying to understand why. "There's a way forward," I said carefully. "But it's not the relationship we had before. That family died at that dinner table." "We know," Julian said quietly. "This is something new," I continued. "Something we build together. Based on honesty instead of obligation. Based on respect instead of blood."
Can you do that?
All three nodded. "Then we start there," I said. "No promises. No expectations. Just honest effort." Mom smiled through tears. "That's more than we deserve." "Maybe," I agreed. "But it's what I'm willing to give." Dr. Klein appeared at my elbow. "Elias, the keynote speaker is ready." I nodded, then looked at my family.
Stay.
"I want you to hear this." I walked to the stage. The microphone felt heavy in my hand. "Tonight isn't about me," I began. "It's about every kid who was told they weren't enough. Every young person who was made to feel invisible. Every brilliant mind that was dismissed because they didn't fit someone else's idea of worthy." I looked out at the crowd. Found my family in the 5th row. I started this foundation because I know what it's like to build a dream from ashes. To take rejection and turn it into fuel. To prove to yourself, not to the people who doubted you, but to yourself, that you are exactly who you were meant to be. Maya was crying in the front row. So was Devin. "You are enough," I said, voice strong. "You always were. And no one, not family, not friends, not anyone, gets to tell you otherwise." The applause was thunderous. When I stepped off stage, Mom was waiting. "Can I hug you?" I hesitated, then nodded. She held me like she was afraid I'd disappear. "I see you now," she whispered. "I finally see you." "I know," I said. "That's why we're still here." What happens when broken families learn to rebuild on truth? 3 months after the ceremony, I received an envelope at my office. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper and a photograph. The photo showed my family's house, the one I grew up in. Except now there was a plaque by the front door. "In honor of Elias Rowan, who taught us that love means seeing someone for who they truly are." The paper was a letter from Rhea. "They wanted me to give you this. They installed it last week." Julian cried when they mounted it. "Your mother touches it every time she walks past. I thought you should know." I stared at that photo for a long time. It should have felt like victory, like the vindication I'd wanted when I first walked out of that dinner. Instead, it just felt sad. Sad that it took losing me for them to value me. Sad that a plaque couldn't replace 32 years of actually being seen. But also something else. Something like hope. I called Dr. Klein into my office. Showed him the photo. "What do you feel?" he asked. "Complicated," I admitted. "That's honest. I don't know if I can fully trust them again," I said. "Part of me will always remember that dinner. That moment when they said no one liked me." "That's not wrong," Dr. Klein said gently. "Trust broken that badly rarely heals completely. But partial healing is still healing." I thought about the coffee meetings we'd been having. Monthly at first, then bi-weekly. The conversations were getting easier. More genuine. Julian had apologized 6 different times in 6 different ways. Mom sent me texts about things that reminded her of me, not needing responses, just wanting to share. Dad invited me to consult on a project, then insisted on paying me full rate because you've earned it. Baby steps towards something I couldn't quite name yet. That evening I drove to their house. First time in 3 years. The plaque was exactly like the photo. Polished brass.
Permanent.
I touched it gently, reading the words again. The door opened. Mom stood there, surprised. Elias. I saw the photo, I said. She bit her lip. We wanted to tell you in person, but we were afraid you'd say no. Say no to what? To us honoring you. To us trying to make amends. She stepped aside. Will you come in? I hadn't been inside in 3 years. Everything looked the same, but felt different. Or maybe I was different. Probably both. Dad and Julian were in the living room. They stood when I entered, like I was someone important instead of someone they dismissed. The plaque, I said simply. We wanted everyone to know, Dad said. Everyone who visits this house. Every client, every friend, every stranger. We wanted them to know we have an extraordinary son, and we were too blind to see it. It doesn't fix anything, I said quietly. We know, Julian replied. But it's the truth. You taught us something we should have known all along. I sat down on the couch I'd sat on 1,000 times before. But this time, they sat with me like I belonged there. I'm not ready to call this fixed, I said carefully. But I'm willing to keep trying. Mom grabbed my hand. That's all we're asking. We sat in silence for a moment. The kind of silence that didn't feel suffocating anymore. Just present. The foundation is expanding, I said finally. We're adding mentorship programs. I could use some architectural consultants for the Sustainable Housing Initiative. Dad's eyes widened. You'd work with us? With the firm, I corrected. Professional capacity. Market rate. No special treatment. We wouldn't want special treatment, Julian said quickly. We want to earn it. Then submit a proposal like everyone else, I replied. If it's the best fit, you'll get the contract. They submitted it 2 weeks later. It was thorough, innovative, competitive. They got the contract. Not because they were family, because they were good. 6 months later, we stood together at the groundbreaking for the first housing complex the foundation funded. 12 sustainable homes for young innovators who needed a stable place to work on their dreams. My family's firm designed it. My company's software managed it. My foundation funded it. For the first time, we were building something together. Not as the family we used to be, but as the people we were becoming. The local news covered it. The reporter asked about our collaboration. This is my son, Dad said proudly. He revolutionized our industry and taught us what real innovation looks like. Not my son who works with computers. Not the quiet one. My son who revolutionized our industry. I felt something crack in my chest. Not breaking. Opening. After the cameras left, we stood looking at the empty lot that would become homes. I'm proud of you, Mom said quietly. I know I should have said it years ago. I'm saying it now. I'm proud of who you are.
Thank you, I said. Meant it.
Are we? Julian hesitated. Are we okay? You and me. I looked at my brother. The golden child who'd helped make me feel worthless. Who'd spent 2 years trying to understand why. We're getting there, I said honestly. Ask me again in a year. He nodded. Fair. That night, driving back to Seattle, I thought about that family dinner. The one where everything shattered. Those words, no one in this family actually likes you, had destroyed me. But they'd also freed me. Freed me to discover who I was without their approval. To build something meaningful. To become someone I was proud of. The cruelest thing they'd ever said became the catalyst for my greatest transformation. I didn't forgive them because they deserved it. I forgave them because I deserved peace. And peace, I'd learned, wasn't the same as reconciliation. Sometimes it just meant letting go of the weight you'd carried for too long. Can healing happen when both sides finally choose honesty over pride? 5 years after that dinner, I sat in my Seattle office, watching the sunset paint the skyline gold and orange. My company had just been acquired for $300 million. I'd kept my position, kept my team, but now had resources to expand the foundation globally. Tomorrow, I'd announce scholarships in 12 countries. Kids from broken homes in places I'd never been, getting chances I'd had to fight for.
My phone rang. Dad.
Hey, I answered. Did you see the news? His voice was excited. Your acquisition made international headlines. I saw. We're throwing you a celebration dinner. Tomorrow night. Our house. The whole family. I smiled. The whole family? Well, Dad laughed. You, us, Dr. Klein, your team leads, Maya and Devin from the foundation. Everyone who matters. Everyone who matters. Including me this time. I'll be there, I said. The next evening, I pulled up to the house with the brass plaque. It had weathered now, 5 years of rain and sun, but the words remained clear. Inside, the dining room table was set. The same table where everything had exploded. But tonight, it looked different. Flowers. Candles. Photographs of foundation projects lining the walls. Maya and Devin were there, both thriving in their careers. Dr. Klein sat at the head of the table like the patriarch he'd become to me. My team leads laughed with Julian and Rhea.
And my parents.
Older now.
Softer.
Looking at me with something I'd never seen before, genuine pride. Dinner was loud, warm, full of stories and laughter. No tension. No judgment. Just people who'd learned how to see each other. After dessert, Dad stood up, tapping his glass. 5 years ago, we lost our son. Not to distance or tragedy, but to our own blindness. His voice cracked slightly. Elias walked out of this house, and we thought we'd lost nothing. We were wrong. We'd lost everything that mattered. Mom wiped her eyes. But then something extraordinary happened. Instead of being destroyed by our rejection, Elias became more than we'd ever imagined. He built companies, changed industries, created a foundation that's transforming lives around the world. Dad looked directly at me. And then, when he had every right to leave us in the dust, he gave us a second chance. Not because we deserved it, because he's a better person than we taught him to be. The room was silent except for quiet sniffling. So tonight, we're not just celebrating your success, son. We're celebrating the man you became without our help. And we're grateful, so grateful, that you let us be part of your life again. Everyone raised their glasses. I stood slowly. Thank you. But I need to say something too. I looked around the table, at the faces that had become family in different ways. That night 5 years ago, I heard the worst thing anyone had ever said to me. No one in this family actually likes you. Those words almost destroyed me. Mom made a small sound of pain. But they also freed me. I continued. They forced me to stop waiting for love that wasn't coming and start building it myself. I found Dr. Klein, who showed me what real mentorship looks like. I found my team, who showed me what respect looks like. I found Maya and Devin and 50 other kids who showed me what unconditional belief looks like. I turned to my biological family. And then you did something I didn't expect. You changed. Real change. Not just words, but actions. Not just apologies, but accountability. You learned to see me, finally. And I learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing peace over pain. My voice steadied. So, yes, we're celebrating my success tonight. But we're also celebrating something harder. The fact that broken families can heal if everyone's willing to do the work. Not back to what we were, but forward to something new. Julian stood up. To Elias, who taught us that real strength isn't about never breaking. It's about how you rebuild. To Elias, everyone echoed. Later, after everyone had left, I stood in the driveway with my parents. The Seattle-bound car was running, but I wasn't quite ready to leave yet. Thank you for coming, Mom said. For giving us another chance. Thank you for earning it, I replied. Dad hugged me. A real hug. The kind he used to give Julian, but never me. You've always been enough, son. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I drove back to Seattle with the windows down, cool night air rushing through the car. Thought about the journey. The pain. The transformation. The unexpected reconciliation. That dinner 5 years ago had shattered me. But from those broken pieces, I'd built something extraordinary. Not despite the rejection. Because of it. I'd learned that you can't force people to love you. But you can love yourself enough to walk away from those who don't. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that walking away becomes the catalyst for everyone's transformation. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be, while staying decent enough to let them witness it. I pulled into my Seattle parking garage, turned off the engine, and sat in the silence. My phone buzzed. A text from the foundation office. First international scholarship recipient selected. 14-year-old girl, from Kenya. Building solar technology for her village. I smiled. This was what mattered. Not family dinners or reconciliation, or even success. This was about making sure other kids never felt as invisible as I once did. I'd walked away from a family that didn't want me and walked toward myself. In the process, I'd built both a legacy and a life worth living. And that was the sweetest justice of all. The screen door to my apartment building caught the streetlight as I walked through. Tomorrow, 12 countries. 1,000 kids. Endless possibility. I didn't just survive my family's rejection. I transformed it into fuel for something bigger than any of us. True love doesn't need proof. Real family doesn't need to be bought. And the person you become after breaking is often stronger than the person who never cracked. In the end, they didn't just leave me in shock. I left them speechless. And I did it by refusing to become bitter. By choosing growth over grudges. By building instead of burning. That's how you win when the world tells you you're not enough. You prove them wrong by becoming everything you already were, just finally visible. What story of transformation do you need to hear next? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next powerful journey of resilience and redemption. Drop a comment below sharing your own story of overcoming rejection. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's build a community where every voice matters and every story inspires. Hit that subscribe button now, and let's continue changing lives together.